I'm just going to unveil something I hope you find interesting. It's a tool that we use, and we came up with this. I came up with this, me and little Gareth, in recent years, because not everyone's a preacher, if you like, but if you're out on the street, and I know Christine uses this. Do you use this? Where do you use it? Letchworth Town Centre. All right, so this is quite popular as well because it can accompany a book table. Right, it's called the True or False Post. I've got some booklets as well. We wrote a response to this. But if you look at these statements, if you look at those questions or statements, we say to people, I'd love to know what you think of these statements, what you think is true or false. So we're inviting people. So as people are walking by, or you could be over across the, over there somewhere, walking by. I mean, I'm like a charity worker, so I'm like, I'd love to know what you think of these statements, and I'm a bit like that. So I never say, have you got 5 minutes to look at these statements? I say, that's your cue. I love to know what you think, because no one's got 5 minutes. And if I tell you the amount of times people say, oh, go on then, I've only got 5 minutes, and they stay talking there for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And you can see a transformation because, they're hearing the word of God. And so when you look at these, true or false, has life got meaning? Okay. There is no God, most people say, yeah, life's got meaning, and they might tell you a little bit, and then you can say, okay, is God involved in that meaning? No, I'm an atheist. Okay. There's no atheist on a sinking ship. Have you heard that expression? I love to say that to atheists because I know what that's like. Have you ever prayed? God answers prayer. Have you ever prayed? Evolution is a theory. So have you got a scientific mind? Maybe. Evolution, micro evolution. What do you believe? You believe in the Big Bang. How many millions of years are we going back now? Every year there's more millions added. You need a lot of faith to believe in that. Tell me why you believe in it, okay? And sometimes I don't get too bogged down with it, but I might say, do you know what? You probably know more about these things than I do. I know that Stephen Hawking said that, you can create something out of no thing. That don't make sense to me. Explain that to me. There's the best question right there in the middle. Jesus is God. Is that true or false? If a Muslim is standing there, I know exactly what he's going to say to all of these anyway. He's going to agree with most of them that I agree with, but he's going to say Jesus isn't God, the Bible can't be trusted, and it's heaven for good people. Love answer. Even if someone's got 5 minutes, and they've got to genuinely go because they've got a bus to get. I say, before you go, please tell me. And what I'm telling you now, I want to say that people do not get offended because it's the way you say it. I say, listen, mate, I know you've only got 5 minutes, but let's say, God forbid, you got hit by a number 9 bus on your way home now, tonight. Heaven for good people. What's going to happen if you meet with God, if it's true and there's a God? I know you're an atheist, but if it's true, you think you're good enough to get in heaven. And you can talk about the good person, you can do the good person test if you want. The Bible can be trusted. Can you trust the Bible? No, you can't trust the Bible. Why is that? I'd love to know why. Have you ever read it? No? It's full of contradictions. Can you give me one contradiction? Let's get the Bible out.
You just wind back a little bit. You said, do the good person test.
Yeah.
What's that?
We come back to that. I'm just, because now what I'm going to do in this moment, you guys are going to, one of you is going to be like a non-Christian, one of you is going to be a Christian. If you're a non-Christian, you don't have to overdo it, but And I want you to tackle these statements. How would you answer these questions? Okay? Sin is serious. Is sin serious? Heaven is for good people. Okay? So if you have a look at those questions, because I'm just conscious of the time, let's just go straight into you guys tackling these questions. So maybe over here, you guys over there, but get into like 2 or 3s, yeah? And you tackle life has no meaning. Life has got no meaning. Is that true or false? One of you is a non-Christian, or 2 of you, and the other 1 or 2 are Christians. Over here, Daniel, and maybe this row here. Yeah, is that all right? Like the 2 couples behind, you can tackle there is no God. Is that all right? So one of you says there is no God. No, I don't believe there is a God. And then the other one's a Christian. And then this row here, God answers prayer. Yeah? Does God answer prayer? Okay? One of you says, you know, you might not be a believer at all. You say, no, God doesn't answer prayer. You're a Christian. How would you respond? You guys at the back, you all right doing evolution is a theory? Yeah. We've got any scientists around? Who else would like to do that? Just another couple. All right, you 2, all right, you do it then. All right, so you and you, evolution is a theory. Is that true or false? You guys here, Jesus is God. Let's take, you know, Ben, you 4, and the couple at the front. Jesus is God. Yeah, who is Jesus? The Bible can be trusted. You 4 here, yeah, the Bible can be trusted. Can you trust the Bible? No, you can't trust it. You know, you're a Christian, defend it. You can't trust yourself. Let's just have 1 couple doing that. Do you mind doing that? You 2, the gentleman with the green shirt. You can't trust yourself 100%. Can you trust yourself 100%? Okay? Sin is serious. There's 3, 4 of you. There's a gentleman there as well. Sin is serious. Okay, you 4. And then you 3 here. Heaven is for good people. All right? Go for it. I'll give you a few minutes. Can I just say, when you're responding, try and use some questions as well, and also see if you can gently get to the gospel a bit as well in it. Try and take the conversation to the gospel. Okay? Go for it. Folks, can I stop you there? Can I stop you there? I don't know if you want to, you can get back in your seats if you want, you know. Is that okay? I can see you getting really engrossed in that. That's great. Look, putting up your chairs right in front of each other, waving your fists. Okay, because we're short on time, I might just ask 2 or 3 couples what their experience were like. So, guys, there, and I'm going to interrupt you, no offence when I do, all right? So we can move things on. So, life has no meaning over there. Who was the non-Christian spokesman? Just very quickly, tell us, or the Christian, tell us how the conversation briefly went. Go.
He basically said that it would also depend on like when you'd caught them. So like if they'd had a bad day, they'd probably say life does have no meaning. But if they'd had a pretty good day, they might be on the opposite end of the spectrum and say, yeah, definitely, like look at all these great things I've done. So it kind of depends on the day that you catch them.
Okay, on the day. Yeah, but did you actually kind of, anyone else then? What about the Christian? How did you kind of go with that? Did you take the conversation any further about meaning of life?
Life definitely has a meaning, that we're here to spread the gospel and praise Jesus.
Okay, but to the non-believer? Okay, all right, just stop you there if that's all right. So it depends on the circumstances. I mean, most people will say, yes, I find meaning you know, if you just probe them a little bit, it might be, you know, I find meaning in my work. You know, it's good to get specific, you know, meaning in my work, you know, my family. I like traveling. I find meaning as I go along in my life. If there's an absence of God, you'll find that. And then you can, you know, again, I've got it. Please take a true or false booklet. Aristotle said, happiness is the meaning of life, right? But things that we find meaning, like love, can also really let us down and break our hearts. Okay? So we can find meaning in things, but it can be very circumstantial. So I'm just kind of noting that. I mean, normally I'll move on and I'll say, have you got a concept of God? Is God involved in that meaning? And then you can go on to the God conversation from there. That's how I would link it. Okay? So there is no God. Okay, Daniel and the missus. Who was who?
We all did it as a group. So
Okay.
I was actually the only non-Christian
Okay.
in this.
So you said there's no God?
Yes.
All right, and how did the conversation go?
Edward called me foolish. Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
The Bible called me foolish.
Yeah. I'm just quite paraphrasing. Is it the atheist? No, not the atheist. The fool says, in his heart there's no God. Is what he says. Fool. So I'll pause you there. Now, if I went around saying to every person, "You're foolish," they'd probably walk off. Or I'm going to get into so it might not be. Did you not ask her a question? Like, why don't you believe in God? Can I just ask you, why don't you believe in God? In other words, how did the conversation go after that?
Yeah. So then, then Dan asked me a question about how the universe was created.
Yeah.
And then it did start becoming a bit difficult for me to keep pretending that I didn't believe in God.
Okay.
And then I started just talking about how if we were made in his image, then there's a big guy in the sky that looks like us, and how is that possible?
Okay.
So it started becoming more difficult.
Daniel, did you take the conversation towards the gospel at all?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, we talked about Jesus' life in the Bible. There was evidence of,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And how did you respond to that evidence?
I just said, well, how can you prove that that's true?
Okay. All right. And then you can be beginning to have a conversation around that. You know, it's only 2,000 years ago, so you could talk about, you know, what I mentioned earlier. You know, you can begin to have a conversation about that Christ, you know, we know we've got historical evidence, all the rest of it. Did you ask her what her understanding of Jesus Christ was? Okay?
No.
So if you're on that subject, so what is your understanding of who Jesus was then, or is? That's where I would go with that straight away. Remember that question. But, all right, you don't believe in God, but what's your understanding of who Jesus is? Can I just ask you? Okay, so thanks. God answers prayer. Who did that? Does he answer prayer? How did you get on? Out in front here, how did you get on? In short.
Sure. Well, I think I've never been asked that before about.
Go on, so on.
I've never been asked that before about God answering prayer, so it's a bit difficult.
Was you the Christian?
So I tried to play the non-Christian.
Yeah.
But answers that came back, answers that we generally, I think, chatted around when God answers prayer, where he always does, but sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, sometimes it's not yet. He knows what's best for us.
Okay.
And some stuff like that. And also importantly, at the end, it was pointed out that one prayer God does answer is for forgiveness of sins, and whether when you come genuinely to him for forgiveness, that he will answer that. And the most important prayer is to come to him in repentance and faith to know Jesus.
All right, that's great. Thank you. I'm going to stop you there because at the time. So God answers prayer. Again, what is prayer? Prayer is, as someone says, prayer is not asking for something, but getting to know someone. It's not asking for something necessarily, it's getting to know someone. So that's where you can expand on what prayer is. It's a dialogue, it's a relationship with God. So I would also go down that road. That's right in what you're saying there, of course. You know, we pray for a lot of people who've never been prayed for. You asked me how effective it was on the streets. Week in, week out, we're praying for people who've never been prayed for before. Excuse me, do you mind if I pray for you before you go? Okay. Always ask, never, you know. And it's such a privilege to do that, because what we're doing is we're ushering the Holy Spirit, and we're endeavouring to bring them into the presence of God. So you're also showing them what prayer looks like. You can open your eyes, you can shut your eyes, you can do what you want, and so forth. Right? So prayer's a biggie. Can I pray for you as well as healing at all? You know, is anything? I'm going to pray for you though, that you would draw closer to Jesus Christ and Him to you. Evolution, just really quickly. Evolution is a theory. Do we get bogged down with that at all? Just really quickly. And you online as well. I hope you guys have done a little exchange.
Yeah, so we had a non-Christian and a Christian debating it, and the non-Christian perspective was very much, you know, the Big Bang Theory, and you know, we came from chimpanzees, and you know, there's loads of evidence, and science disproves God. And then Steve, as the Christian, was pointing out that, you know, how well can you really trust that evidence, and you know, kind of hitting home that Jesus was a historical figure, and he said, you know, this is who God is, and he believed the Bible, which is why we should believe the Bible.
Okay, stop there. Thank you very much. Again, with evolution, I always try and take the conversation as at some point away from it as well, and bring it back to the person. So sure, you're having discussions, you know. I always like saying, yeah, sure, there's observable evolution, you know, observable, but what about, you know, being transformed from one species to another? There's a missing link. I'd love you to show me fossil evidence in abundance for the missing link, because apparently there is a missing link. And if you can give me an email or book that I can read, because what you'll find, most people, it's just hearsay. It's just, you know, they get the information. But what I tend to do is bring it back, you know, but you're unique, you know. You know, Francis Crick and Watson, who discovered the DNA, 3.2, you know, you're unique. You've got 3.2 billion cells in your DNA, you know, and even Francis Crick, who was an atheist, and so was Watson, said it's virtually mathematically impossible for this to come about in accident. What do you think about that? So I'll go into, you're amazing. God, He's made you unique. You're an amazing person. Again, I've got things like that in the book there as well. Right, Jesus is God.
So I was a non-Christian. I said, he's a nice guy, that's all.
Yeah.
As Joseph said, what about his miracles? I said, well, people do miracles today, that's nothing special. But then he said, yeah, but he raised people from the dead. He even raised himself from the dead.
Yeah.
I said, well, people believe that kind of... They were naive in those days to believe anything. Then he said, but 500 people at one time saw him.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah.
Well, then we were talking about doubting Thomas.
Yeah.
Thomas wasn't naive, he was skeptical, but then he was convinced because Jesus appeared to him personally.
Okay, and that's great. You know, you can take that conversation, and on the subject of doubting Thomas, again, I've got that in the tract as well. And what does Jesus say after doubting Thomas says, "You are my Lord and my God"? What does he say next, Jesus? What does he say? Can anyone remember? Blessed those who believe without seeing. Now, for me, when I read that, that is like more than prophetic. That's amazing, because how can I get that? I haven't seen him like Thomas saw him, yet I do see him. What happened to me and you? Okay, so again, bring it back to the personal as well. Okay, and there's lots you can say about Jesus, because if he isn't God, he's a lunatic then, you know, a madman, like C.S. Lewis put it as well. But he never gave us any middle ground as to who he was. In fact, if he was just a good teacher, he'd be a false teacher because of the claims he made about himself, so and so forth. Okay, sin is serious. Really quickly, you guys, I kind of came into your conversation.
You did.
Because you was propagating as a Christian, wasn't you? You was a
I was the
non-Christian.
non-Christian. I had a
Yeah.
lovely time.
Yeah.
I opened with sin isn't a thing,
Yeah.
and anyway, I'm a good person and I'm kind to
Yeah.
animals.
Okay, stop there. How did you end up? How did you end up asking him the good person thing? Did you do the good person test then that you asked me about? You know, anyone familiar with Living Waters where they do the good person test? You say, all right. Can I ask you then? You know, because I asked you. I got into the conversation and I said, but okay, it was being a bit difficult. I said, but what's your understanding of sin, even if you're not sure, or even according to Christianity? And you kind of said it's the wrong things you do against God. You said, didn't you? And I said, that's a great definition, you're right. But a good person test is just look at the commandments. You know, have you ever told a lie? Yes. You know, have you ever taken anything that doesn't belong to you? No, but you've already told me you're a liar, so I don't believe you. Have you ever looked at another person in a lustful way? You know, Jesus says... Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, he asked... Oh, all right.
Yeah.
It's basically, obviously, I asked him, he said, he doesn't believe, I believe. So I said to him, how can I will believe you if you live forever. And if you don't believe forever, how can I believe you? So
but you're getting what it is you want to lay the question on the table, and he defined it. So remember when I said to you, ask him a question, he did, and then you can go from there. And you can always say, look, whether you believe it or not, according to Christianity, sure, you know, we judge ourselves not by other people, but with God's standards. That's kind of what you're getting to. So if heaven is for good people, who did that? We're just moving it on.
Yeah, I was the non-Christian, and basically kind of said, yes, if there is a heaven, I'm sure it is for good people. And that then led the Christians on to talking about what is good a person, what is a good person. And a bit like that, have you ever, you know, told a lie or something? Well, maybe, you know.
Okay. So
and then it led
you
to the
went down
gospel.
that road,
So, yeah.
Okay. So you went down the good person test, if you like, right? So, and don't be afraid of people. You know, it's okay to excuse yourself if you get knocked over by a number 9 bus, or if I'm talking to a Muslim, you know, or it doesn't matter if it's a Muslim, right? You're in the presence of God, right? If I come and use stuff like this to get the person to relate, if I come into your house, you've got standards. I love saying this. I've got it in the book as well. If I come into your house, you might say to me, Maros, take your shoes off, I've got new carpet, don't swear in front of the kids, you know, and so forth, right? You've got standards, and so has God, and they're perfect and holy. So you've got to be perfect and holy to get in, right? Now, if you, and you know, we come back to, you know, not one person is good, we've all fallen short of the glory of God. But remember, if you don't think you're a sinner, or you think constantly you're a good person, you don't need a saviour. And I say that to people. I say, I understand, because if you don't think, you know, you have sin, you know, or you think you're good enough, you're self-righteous, you don't need Jesus. But I want to say this to you because I'm obliged to, and we can do a little test here. If you let me oblige, let's just, again, excuse yourself. Say, if it's true, and you're in the presence of God, do you really think you can stand in his presence? Because you've got to be perfectly good all the time. So that, you know, and that's why, explain to people, can I quickly do the chemical cross? Let me end on this. Who did, I can't, you can't trust yourself 100%. Go on, tell us.
Driving along, you have to be 100% sure of where you're going, otherwise you could make a mistake.
Yeah.
End up in the wrong road or the wrong town.
Okay. So
lost.
no,
You get lost. You sort of have to know what you're doing.
All right. So in other words, and we'll end on this, right? In other words, the reason why I put that up, this is a Mark II, full 14, a Mark II, I joke and say, the Mark I had, which is still a good one, money is everything. Is that true or false? But the reason why we throw that in is whoever I'm talking to, even if it's evolution or whatever it is, I say, can you trust yourself 100%? Yes. Have you ever made any mistakes? Yes. Okay, but you trusted yourself at the time that you was going to, I said, I've made too many mistakes. So in other words, the principle being that if you can't trust yourself 100%, you're trusting other people and what they say. Okay, so there's something not quite right in that. And then I can also talk about sin. Right, I'm going to end on this because I'm conscious of the time, right? So this is what we're saying to people, and we do this publicly, it's great. Anyone seen the chemical cross, right? Basically, that's your body, and it stops people see it. And I say, this is an illustration as to why Jesus died on the cross. Imagine that's your body and that's your life, and we go through our life. And we might have aspirations and dreams, we might get a good education, we might be loved by our families, we might not be, we might have a difficult life, we might end up having families of ourselves, but we go through life, And I went through my life as well, and I came to a stage, a turning point in my life, and what I realised is I did a lot of wrong things. Imagine that represents the wrong things I've done in my life, kind of put a stain on my life. And, even kids, when you think about a little child, you don't have to teach the child how to do wrong. They just do it. You're trying to teach them how to do right things. Imagine that represents the wrong things that we do. And I can ask you whether you've ever told a lie. Hands up. Ever taken anything that doesn't belong to yourself, and so forth, right? So I realised that not only did that, I came to a point in my life as I realised that not only did that separated me from people because of the wrong things I'd done, and I really wanted forgiveness as well to forgive them, but I realised I came to a point where I realised that that separated me from God. So if that represents, there's a word called sin, it's an old-fashioned word, I can explain that, and that is what separates me from God. So I came to realise that if something happens to me, so imagine if you have that sinful nature and you meet with God, he's going to see you like that, and there's no way you can be in his presence because of that stain in your life. And what we do is we try and make it right. So we might try and do good things. We might get really religious as well, and try and be that really good person. Help a little old lady across the road even if she doesn't want to go. Right? We might give to charity. We might pray several times a day. But you know what? It doesn't take that sin away. It doesn't. No matter what we do, it's still there. So you meet with God. Now, and what I say is I'm going to take out a symbol, and some people might get different reactions for it. Certainly an old rugged cross. And that means different things to different people, right? This symbol. But what I want to say, it's only an illustration, but when Christ died on that cross, and what I came to realise is that he took away my sin. He took the whole burden of sin on his shoulders when he died, before, during and after. And he says, and he went to remarkable lengths to do that. To make me clean. And I know it's an illustration, but it's a good one. But that's what Jesus done. He came down from heaven. He died on that cross. He took your place and my place, right? And he took away the sin of the world. He made me clean, And I came to believe that. And I realised, I won't take that out because it might go everywhere, but I came to realise that if you come to accept Jesus in your life, if you accept him, and accept what he's done for you, then you will get right with God. And that's how God will see you. He will see you through the righteousness of Jesus Christ. Like you're wearing a cloak of righteousness when you come into his presence. And it's an illustration, but it's a good one. So thank you for listening. Oh.